It doesn't matter what sport it is. No one's interested in the umpire, except sometimes players blow up in their faces, though not without good reason. From Roger Federer to Nick Kyrgios, here's a rundown of the times tennis players blew up at the referee. Starting with the most recent case of all, Novak Djokovic's emergency bathroom break at the Australian Open. It doesn't matter if you're the biggest player in the world, playing at one of the biggest Grand Slams in your sport. No one's above nature's call. And when it calls, you can't escape it. Djokovic had to be on the receiving end of this call during his first-round match at the Australian Open. And the call looked super urgent.
He needs to go to the toilet after 5 games.
So urgent that the 9-time AO champion couldn't even wait for permission from the chair umpire. That's not to say that he didn't try to get permission. He tried to inform the chair umpire when the players were changing ends at 3-2. Now, this umpire didn't seem to hear him, or she didn't want to. You see, Novak didn't stop after just one attempt. He said hello 3 times to get her attention. But that woman didn't flinch one bit. The Serbian's patience was up by then, and he just announced that he was going to the toilet before racing off. And it wasn't until this moment that the referee, who'd been still as a statue until then, realized something was amiss and shouted after him. The woman had to pull out her radio to find out what was happening. And man, was she annoyed. She called time, saying he has 30 seconds to be back in play. 30 was too much for Novak, who only took 10 seconds to relieve himself.
I think he just ran, so who knows, sometimes when you got to go Fitzy, you got to go.
And the audience continued cheering him on, leading the Grand Slam fave to a straight sets win. It would have been perfect if not for the absurd bathroom break scenario, which, by the way, isn't new to the AO. Because Andy Murray had to face a similar situation. Their situations may be so, but unlike Novak, who ran off at 3-2, Andy was in a very different predicament. He'd been playing for nearly 6 hours against Thanasi Kokkinakis, and was just entering the 5th set when nature's call arrived. Again, unlike the Serbian, Murray politely requested a bathroom break before the final set began. Like everyone else, I was expecting that it'd be granted. I mean, what else would they do? Not let him go? That can never happen, right? Wrong. The 35-year-old player was denied his request. He was told that he'd already used his 1 break earlier in the match. Yeah, they get a set number of allowed breaks, and after that, you're on your own, kid. Andy was angry. He told the chair umpire that while he respected all the rules because he had to, they were a joke. He said, "It's a joke, and you know it as well." But it wasn't just a joke, it was plain disrespect. Disrespect to some of the best in the game.
It's so disrespectful that the tournament has us out here until 4 o'clock in the morning, and we're not allowed to go and take a piss.
Who have to be playing till post-midnight. But they can't go to the toilet because, hey, they already went once? Unfortunately, as tough as they sound, these bathroom break trifles don't even begin to describe the actual issues that some tennis players face with referees. Remember what happened to Serena Williams at the US Open in 2018? Tensions were high that day when Portuguese tennis umpire Carlos Ramos imposed 3 penalties on Williams. After losing the final to Naomi Osaka, Serena had to face fines of $17,000, which included $10,000 for verbal abuse, $4,000 for a coaching mishap, and $3,000 for racket abuse. That
watching her coach give her a hand signal.
Verbal abuse.
And now
Penalty, Mrs. Williams.
That's enough to tell you what went down. She had an outburst on the court in which she also called the umpire a thief.
You owe me an apology. You owe me an apology. I have never cheated in my life. I have a daughter and I stand what's right for her and I've never cheated. And you owe me an apology. You will never do another one again.
But she didn't think that this was worth a $4,000 fine. In fact, Serena thought it was pretty sexist of Ramos to impose such a penalty. She said her fellow male players have called referees all kinds of things, but they'd never been penalized like this, and Serena was robbed of a game just because she said thief? Make it make sense. Williams was angry. She said he's never taken a game from a man because they said thief. And she's right. Ramos hadn't imposed such strict rules on men because they've said such words. But that doesn't mean he didn't impose any fines on them. He imposed one on Novak at Wimbledon in that same year. Djokovic had a meltdown in his second set against Kei Nishikori. And when I say meltdown, I mean he smashed his racket on the ground. As a result, he got handed a racket abuse fine. Novak, being Novak, went up to the chair umpire and started arguing with him. He said, "You think I ruined the court by tossing the racket 2 meters behind the baseline?" It was more frustrating because Carlos didn't penalize Nishikori for a similar offense. And Djokovic was quick to call him out on his double standards. It's funny you speak of double standards, Novak. I mean, this man argued with the referee just like Williams did. But just as Serena said, he only got 1 fine. She got 3. But at least he got 1 fine. Some players can say anything and everything, but they still walk free. I'm talking about Nick Kyrgios at 2015's Wimbledon here. It's no secret that Kyrgios is controversial. At this point, that should be his middle name. He's done a lot of questionable acts on the court, and he doesn't seem to like most people either. If Nick were a rapper, he'd be pretty good at it. This man can diss anyone without fear of being reprimanded.
This is getting a little farcical, isn't it now?
He played Diego Schwartzman at Wimbledon in 2015. Things got very heated that day as the Aussie threatened to stop playing when contesting a call. Things escalated, and soon enough we saw Nick having a dispute with the chair umpire, Mohamed Layani. No one knows what really went down, but Nick was heard calling someone a dirty scum. And guess what? He faced no consequences for it. None whatsoever. Not only was he not reprimanded at the moment, but he wasn't fined after the match. According to the player, he directed the abuse at himself, not Mohamed. But knowing this guy's track record, I'm not sure if you could take his word for it. Remember how angry Carlos was over being called a thief? This guy straight up called the referee scum. It can't get worse than this, right? Well, I'd like to think so. The reality, however, is that it has gotten much worse in the past. And this was Kyrgios. I mean, no disrespect, but he's someone you'd expect this kind of stuff from. But would you expect it from Roger Federer? He's retired now and his legacy is sealed. But you don't get to the top of this sport without some really ugly moments. So far, Nick's argument was the only one where I was on the referee side. That and maybe Novak's aggressive racket abuse. But this one incident is worse than those two combined. It all went down at the 2009 US Men's Final, where, as some of you may remember, he lost. During the match, you could see Roger complain to the umpire many times.
Al, it was not you, correct? You did not make the call, right?
He was annoyed that his opponent was taking too long to decide whether to challenge a call or not. The referee, Jake Garner, asked him to stop complaining. Harsh, I know. But Roger was in fits over this. He started howling at the umpire, so much so that mics could pick up on it. He said some really obscene words, saying that he'd talk when he wanted to talk, and no one could tell him what to do. Yeah, it was that bad. Anyway, that's all for the times the tennis players blew up at the referee. See you in the next video.